one of many interceptor UAVs that Ukrainian military is building, developing, and fielding. This particular drone is built with the cooperation of the Japanese Research and Development Establishment and the Japanese government. It is going to feature advanced technologies for identifying and intercepting its targets. Right now, the Russian military has one interceptor it is using regularly, and that's Yolka. It is developing multiple others, but the real evidence is really boiling down to about one or so interceptor. Meanwhile, on the Ukrainian side, there are at least half a dozen active interceptors which are now working against Russian targets, and especially Russian long-range UAVs. So for the Russian military and the Russian government, this is yet another evidence of Ukraine developing advanced technology that is aimed at mitigating and minimizing Russian advantage in long-range UAV attacks. This drone is going to go after not just Russian Geran, type UAVs, but also after Russian fixed-wing UAVs, which provide a lot of intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance coverage over Ukraine combat. And so again, Russian military and the Russian government are concerned at the increasing number of different types of interceptors that Ukraine is fielding, and especially those that are built with the advanced features enabled by international partners that Ukraine is building cooperation with. Obviously, there were other technologies that preceded the development of these specific drones. Russians and Ukrainians were using simple quadcopters to go after each other's reconnaissance and military UAVs. So this is an evolution of that concept. What has to happen for the defending side is to essentially enable the cost equation to go down as drastically as possible. In other words, the intercepting assets, whether they're drones, missiles, or any other technological means, must be cheaper than the threats which they are trying to mitigate and shoot down. And so if an incoming threat costs tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, perhaps millions of dollars, then the technology that's shooting it down must be drastically less. Otherwise, the emphasis and the stress is on the defender. And this is what we saw early on when Ukraine had to use more sophisticated air defense means, which were rather expensive. And so right now, Ukraine has flipped the equation on its side. The interceptors and other technological means that Ukraine is using to mitigate the Russian drone threat, they actually cost considerably less. And this is what the actual working solution is. In other words, the defenders must utilize technologies which are cheaper, but not less effective than the threats that they're trying to interdict. And so missiles obviously work in air defense capacity when absolutely every asset must be shut down. But at the same time, if there are multiple threats coming in, just like when Russia launches hundreds of Geran and Gerbera drones at the Ukrainian targets, it is not possible to use expensive missiles and other expensive technologies. The defending side must utilize something that is considerably and drastically cheaper. And so this particular interceptor that we're talking about is a very cheap technology. But we also must factor in the cost of training the operators and the cost of the logistics and supporting infrastructure that actually supports the launch of these UAVs. So maybe the cost of the drone overall, when it's used, is a bit higher than the $2,500, but it is many, many magnitudes less than the cost of an incoming threat like the Russian Geran and Gerbera UAV. This drone is one of the solutions that Ukraine is using and building, either domestically or with international partners. These interceptors alone will not be able to mitigate the threats because, after all, Ukraine has built a layered defense. And this layered defense actually begins with signals intelligence and acoustics intelligence and data information gathering efforts on the incoming threats. And that information then must be shared with specific defenders which are located at various distances from the Russian border and around the specific and potential targets. And then, of course, there are different means of shooting down Russian threats. They include the interceptor we are discussing and other interceptor drones like Sting and many others. But they also include mobile firing teams. They also include short-range air defense systems and missiles and other means. Again, it is not one specific solution that works against these type of threats. It is a multitude of solutions which are constructed and utilized in a system of systems. So while Ukraine may be constantly under stress of Russian drone and missile attacks, it is also looking for solutions that can minimize the cost of this defense, but would not be a wonder weapon. After all, no single system can take down and mitigate the Russian threat alone. The Geran 5 that you mentioned is the next evolution of this threat. It is a jet-powered UAV. It flies faster, it flies higher than the interceptors that we are discussing right now. So Ukraine would have to develop interceptors that would be able to go after and mitigate those particular threats, those that fly fast and those that fly very high. But Russia is constantly developing new means and new technologies to strike Ukrainian targets. And so after Geran 5, there could be other systems and technologies essentially on the roster. This war, as we have witnessed, is a counterpoint, sword versus shield type of debate. Whenever one side has the advantage, the other side tries to develop a countermeasure, or at least copy successful technologies and practices used by the adversary. And so again, if Geran 5 is built in large numbers and launched at Ukrainian targets, Ukrainian developers, either alone or with international partners, will have to develop technologies that would try to mitigate these faster and more dangerous threats. Well, we're witnessing significant investments and cooperation between Ukrainian defense sector and international partners. It's not just Japan, it's Germany, it's United Kingdom, it's other countries, it's the United States. And it is likely that no single weapon, no single interceptor is going to be the ultimate solution. At the same time, Ukraine has many technologies in development, and this enables it to see which one works best. And if one actually does emerge as the best concept and the best tactic and the best technology to shoot down Russian incoming UAVs, then perhaps Ukraine will probably invest more in that manufacturing and fielding capacity. But again, right now, as I've mentioned, it isn't just a single weapon. It is a multitude of weapons working in a well-synchronized system that have to be proven effective, whether the threats are existing Geran and Gerbera drones or more advanced weapons like Geran 5 or whatever next iteration Russia is working on right now.